Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's June 16th, and these are your headlines. The striper fishing in western Long Island Sound is as good as it can possibly get, with fish eclipsing 60 pounds taken this week. Up in Upper Narragansett Bay, we're hearing about some giant bluefish well into the teens. And for the second week in a row, sea bass fishing is just off the charts from Vineyard Sound all the way into Connecticut. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
So before we begin, I've got a couple of news items I want to throw at you guys. First thing, you may have heard that NOAA and the federal government was threatening to close down federal waters to porgy fishing, or scub fishing if you prefer to call them that. But the news came out last week that they are not going to do that. We like to think that the Fisherman magazine was an integral part of that decision being made. You know, we really sounded the alarm. We got a lot of people together. A lot of local captains were sounding the alarm as well, and definitely got a lot of public comment in there. And you know, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, how did they even think they were going to do that anyway? With the recent stock assessment showing that the fishery was more than 2.5 times the size of what they consider to be sustainable, and they were going to shut it down. But luckily, they're not going to do it this year. And, you know, hopefully that bodes well for the distant future as well. The other thing, of course, is the giveaway, which is going to be a darter in the color of my choosing. It's going to be the darter that I make, the one that I designed to fit into a niche between the Super Strike and the Beachmaster. You know, runs at that mid-depth, catches some really nice fish. In fact, I've got my biggest darter fish of my life on that plug. So you'll be getting one of those. The only rules of the tournament or the event or the giveaway are that you take a picture of yourself showing you and your fish, and that the picture is recent. You can email them to me, you can text them to me, and you know, we'll see what you guys get. Ever since we started doing the text messages, been getting a lot more photos in, and you know, it's a ball game this time. We've got a lot of entries, and this is going to wrap up on July 6th. So you got plenty of time to get that great photo, and we'll see who wins.
We start our weekly Dreamboat Fishing Challenge update by announcing our May Fish of the Month winner for Week Fish, and that is Dean Payella with a 8.7 pound 29-inch weak fish weighed in at We Go Bait and Tackle. The New Jersey subscriber caught his fish off a shelter island on Long Island and takes first place for weak fish. Dean wins a Tsunami, a Vic spinning reel, and a Dexter fillet knife. Dean's on a roll as he also just entered a second place sea bass at 4.37 pounds and is the current total point first place angler with 22 points. Rob Corazano is in second place with 18 points. Garrett Weir holds third place with 17 points. And Daniel Del Rosario is in fourth place with 10 points. New entries in the Dreamboat keep coming in. In the bluefish category, Eddie Terrible weighed in a 15.5 pounder, and Fluke Mike Schuler entered a 11.2 pounder. Joseph Yam entered a 7.81 pound fluke, and in the weak fish category, Paul Alabrano entered a 5.72 pounder. That's the Dreamboat news of the week. You too can fish the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge for a chance to win a Steigercraft 23 Miami with a Yamaha outboard and many other prizes. Remember, only subscribers to the Fisherman magazine can enter.
Hey guys, it's Dave Anderson. We're just going to give you a quick rundown on what's going on in the Coastal Kayak Clash this week. The first fish we're going to talk about is a 15 3/4 inch porgy entered by Eric Lopez, which is good enough for third place in the porgy category. Next, we're going to move down to sea bass. We got Bob Wagner with a 20-incher, which is good enough for third place, and Mark Carlson with a 22-incher, which is now holding second place. The big fish of the week was a 46-inch striped bass taken by none other than Justin Oser. That gives him second place in the striper category and puts him at a comfortable lead for the tournament with 10 points. The next closest competitors are all sitting pretty with 3. Someone's got to make a ball game out of this, so who's it going to be? We don't know yet. Get out there in those kayaks, get those photos in, and let's make this a ball game. Let's not let our good friend Justin Oser run away with this thing. Good luck out there, guys. We'll see you next week.
I'm going to do the reports a little bit different this week. I feel like sometimes I can ramble a little bit, surprise, surprise. So instead of rambling, I'm going to try to pay attention to the hot zones. So we'll start that off in Massachusetts, and we'll start with striped bass. Striper fishing overall had a little bit of a rocky week, I guess. Some of the hot zones that we were looking at for the last few weeks have started to cool off, and that's across the region. But one place that hasn't cooled off, in fact it just only seems to be getting better, is the North Shore of Massachusetts, and Plum Island in particular. Heard from James Jukes, heard from the crew at Surfland, and basically striper fishing up there is just really good right now. They've got a really diverse size bracket to deal with. You got fish from schoolies all the way up into the low 40-inch class. They're getting fish day and night. In fact, first and last light seems to be the main focus for the fishing up there, and they're seeing a lot of fish in that, in the 10 to 20 pound class, and they're seeing fish up in the Merrimack River. They're seeing fish on the beaches. James said that one of the things that's working really well is paddle tail baits, and that's even in daylight, just casting them out there and cranking them in. The one thing that seems to not be working as well as you might expect is top water plugs, but I'm sure that bite will come around. Another hot zone for stripers has been the Boston Harbor Islands, where we're hearing about fish that are pushing 50 pounds. You get a lot of current moving in between those islands, and guys are drifting through there in boats with eels or live bunker, or drifting chunks through there, and they're getting some really nice fish that way. A place that's cooled off a little bit is the North River area. We still have good numbers of fish there, but the average size has gone down. They were getting fish up into the high 30-inch class. Now they seem to be topping out around 30 inches. But that's just the ebbs and flows of the season. Out on Cape Cod, the hot zone is the Bayside. Basically from Barnstable Harbor up to Billingsgate. Guys are getting it from the beach and from the boat. Beach fish are topping out in the low to mid 30-inch class. Out on the boats, they're getting some bigger ones, snapping wire on the shoals and whatnot. Water warms up faster on that side, and I think that's one of the main contributing factors as to why it has heated up the way it has. Also, a lot of bait on that side, and the fact there's a lot of shallow water there, but there's a lot of channels and inlets also makes it a little easier to target those fish. So that's definitely a place, if you're on the Cape and you're looking to hook up with some stripers, that's the place you want to start out. If you're looking for bluefish, you can definitely head down to the Nantucket the Nantucket Sound shoreline. Any of those inlets definitely have some bluefish around them and some decent ones. Also hearing about some big bluefish out on Nantucket Shoal. And of course, if you're looking for fluke in Massachusetts, the place you got to go, the main hot zone right now is Nantucket Shoal. Still on those southerly shoals, so it's a long run. It's 30 miles from home, and it might be 15 miles, I think, from Nantucket. But it's typically worth it if you've got the weather. Some really big fluke come out of there every year, and this year's no different. We're seeing lots of double-digit fish out there again, and don't forget to have that casting rod ready because there are some giant bluefish out there as well. Back on the stripers, out around Martha's Vineyard on the north side and the east side, there's been a pretty good push of larger fish. Fish in the 30 to 40-inch class have been showing up. There's a lot of squid over there, and just starting to see some better fish. Guys are getting them day and night. They're getting them on chunked squid. They're getting them on things like albie snacks, pencil poppers, the docks, smaller spooks, needlefish, darters. All those things are working. The fish get pretty aggressive when squid are around, and that seems to be holding true for the guys fishing the vineyard from the boat and the surf. In Buzzards Bay, things are cooling down a little bit. It seems like a lot of those fish pushed the bunker into the canal, and they may have just kind of squirted through, or maybe they just dissipated. Maybe they ended up at the vineyard. I don't know. But so those fish that were in the coves and kind of heading up into the neck of the canal these last couple weeks, and fueling some really great fishing, have definitely scattered. And it hasn't done much for the fishing inside the canal. I was there this morning, and it was pretty bleak. Few fish were caught, and there's a lot of bait in the canal. Saw bunker, saw a few mackerel, but the numbers of bunker were pretty high, higher than I'm used to seeing in the canal. So that's a good thing. When that right school of fish gets in there, it's definitely going to create a melee situation. We just got to wait for that to happen, and literally that could happen any day. This morning, it was, like I said, it was pretty slow. Saw fish caught from 30 to 40 inches, and the biggest fish I think I saw caught all morning was caught by a giant seal, and we just watched him float down tide and destroy that poor fish. But anyway, also some big bluefish in the canal, fish up to 15 pounds reported in the ditch. I talked to East End Eddie. He said basically the same thing, although there was apparently a shot of fish in the afternoon one day last week. Some good ones, fish into the upper 40-inch class. These fish were on, surprise, surprise, bunker. And, the few guys that were out there in the afternoon had them to themselves. They stuck with the school, and they put on a pretty good show. So that's, I don't know if the canal is a hot zone or not, but that's the story in the canal right now, and the table is set for it to fire up, so we'll just have to wait and see if it does. On the sea bass side of things, it's been good. It's been good almost all over the place. Vineyard Sound has been very good. The Elizabeth Islands have been very good, and Buzzards Bay has been very good. You just want to get on those ledges. You want to get on those places where it drops from 20 to 40 or 50 to 70 feet. Definitely seems like the bigger fish are related to a little bit deeper water, so fishing maybe between 40 and 75 feet. But the bite's been really good. Action's been really fast, and there's been a lot of keepers. No giants, heard about fish topping out in the mid 3-pound range for the most part. But action's good, fishing's great, and there's some scut mixed in as well. And that's a story that I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. Over in Rhode Island, one of the main things that's happening right now, one of the first hot zones I want to talk about is Upper Narragansett Bay, where the bass are getting the heck out of there because the water has eclipsed 70, and that's usually the marker. That's when those fish start to scream out of there, which is setting up some great fishing on the outside, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what's been left behind are some big bluefish, fish well into the teens. They're shadowing these bunker schools, and bluefish are bluefish. For the most part, if you can find them, you're going to catch them on whatever you throw at them. And on those rare occasions when you find them and they're not interested in your pencil popper or your popper or whatever, snag a bunker and just sit there for a second or two. Odds are the thing's going to charge that bait, and you're going to be hooked up. But we've seen some really big ones taken up in the bay. As these fish exit the bay, the stripers exit the bay, we're hearing about a lot of nice fish now starting to populate the ocean front. And that's for surf and boat anglers. A friend of mine got a 41-pounder from the surf just the other night on a live eel. Also had a 30-pounder on a metal lip. And those fish are just streaming out of the bay. Out front, a lot of boat guys are getting some solid fish. They're fishing live bunker, they're fishing the dock, they're fishing flutter spoons. Basically, they're just trying to imitate bunker. And a lot of these fish are in that 20 to 40-pound range with, a very real possibility of hooking a 50. A lot of really nice fish coming out of the bay. And we've got kind of a mixing thing going on right now because we have stripers moving in from Long Island Sound. We have stripers coming in from Montauk. And at the same time, we have fish pulling up on Southwest Ledge. So if you make the run out there, you also have a great shot of hooking a giant out of Block. While we're on the subject of Block Island, fluke fishing, the best place in Rhode Island, even though it's a long ride and gas prices are up there, definitely south and west of Block Island right now. So you're fishing around the windmills, you're fishing the east grounds. That's where most of the action has been. Also great sea bassing there, so keep that in mind. But that's really the only reliable game in town for fluke in Rhode Island. The beaches, Misquamicut, and off the breachways and whatnot, there are fish there, but guys are really working to catch the few keepers that they are, and it's really scattered. There's no, at least from what I'm hearing, we're not hearing about a lot of, not hearing about a consistent bite cropping up along those beaches at all. Sea bass wise, seems like everywhere is hot right now. You can catch them in the approaches to the bay, East Passage, West Passage, Secundit River. You catch them all out in front of Newport, especially, from the Cliff Walk over to Beavertail. And then, that whole corridor from the the center wall, all the way out to Block has been lit up for sea bass. Again, just fishing those deeper ledges, 30 to 75 feet seems to be where most of the action is. A couple of, honorable mention spots, Nebraska Shoal, and some of the deeper spots behind the Watch Hill Reefs are also giving up some good sea bass catches. Just watch that New York line, because sea bass doesn't open till June 23rd in New York. And that's the story that I have for you guys in Rhode Island this week. Over in Connecticut, before we get into the hot zones, I got to tell you one spot that cooled way down, and that's the race. We've had a good run out there, 3 weeks or so. There's been a lot of fish taken, a lot of bass being caught in the race, a lot of slot fish, and guys are putting up double-digit catches. Well, that is over. Most of the people I know that went out there this week struggled, and they struggled to put 5 fish in the boat. But there's still some keeper-sized fish out there, still some fish over the slot. Just seems like that big biomass of fish has moved on. And so, if you're looking for stripers, you're going to want to head more toward the Connecticut River. There's been good numbers of fish inside the mouth of the Connecticut River and just outside the Connecticut River on the reefs. We've heard of some big fish on hatchets and bartletts and cornfield and some of those smaller reefs out there, even on the sand shoal. Fish into the 40-pound class have been taken on bunker chunks, live bunker, live eels. So that is a place to definitely keep an eye on. The best bass fishing in the state is definitely in the Western Sound. Monster fish being taken out there, but I'm going to leave it to Max to fill us in on all that. But while we're in the Connecticut River region, let's throw it over to Captain Mike Roy of Railcast Charters and hear what he's got to say about it.
This week's Fisherman Report, there has been a lot of migratory striped bass showing up on a daily basis. Seems like there's more fish and also larger fish, a lot of slot-sized fish, over slot, and fish over 40 inches in the mix, and seems to be more on a daily basis. They are loaded with sea lice, which is an indication that they are migratory fish, and you can find these fish all through the Sound right now. Fishing is good in the Western Sound, Central Sound, Eastern Sound. All the adjacent rivers have some kind of action in them. Getting them to bite, maybe a bit more of a challenge, but if you could locate the bunker schools, you have a better chance of success. There's been more bunker schools showing up on a daily basis. I heard reports about schools out in the middle of the Sound and stripers and blues feeding on them. So that is all a positive thing. And then the bottom fishing, black sea bass specifically, has remained pretty good as well. I spoke to Captain Seth from Captain Seth's Sport Fishing, who runs 2 boats, the Otter, which is a 6-pack boat, and the Aubrey Droy, which is a small head boat. And he said they've been getting a lot of nice striped bass in the 20 to 30 pound range, and bluefish up to 17 pounds, which is really great to hear. That's giant bluefish. And also on the head boat, they're doing well on porgies and weak fish. So it's good to hear that there's some weak fish kicking around. So for the upcoming week, I would try to find those bunker schools if you're interested in striped bass fishing. As always, try to stay away from the crowds. That's one of the biggest issues right now, is just spots getting overrun with boats. So I always recommend trying to get away from the crowd as much as possible. And that's all I have for you this week.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate the report, and we'll see you next week. For sea bass, the best action has been from Niantic all the way over to like Southwest and 6 Mile. But remember, when you get out on 6 Mile, you got to watch the end of it there, because again, you're going to cross over into New York waters, and it doesn't open until June 23rd, and you don't want to get caught over the line, because they frown on that. But that area has been very good for sea bass, and the one area inside the Sound that's been still giving up some decent fluke, besides way out west where they are getting some decent fluke, is just outside Niantic Bay and then over to the Sand Shoal. Those 2 areas are giving up some somewhat reliable catches of fluke, and still, behind Fishers out at Isabella in that area, still hasn't really come together and made a trip out of it. Guys are still really working for them out there. It's really kind of the same fishery as what we're seeing in South County. But as we head further west, things are looking good. There's a lot of big bass to be caught on chunks, on bunker spoons, on flutter spoons, mojos, and cast and plugs. but I've said enough on that subject. Let's toss it over to Max from Fisherman's World. I know he's very tired because he's pulled many all-nighters this week, taking full advantage of those giant stripers. But thanks for taking an extra 2.5 minutes before you go to bed, Max. And here's his report.
Hey everyone, Max here from Fisherman's World with another local fishing report. The striped bass fishing this past week has been nothing short but amazing. We've seen fish to over 60 pounds caught by Fisherman's World owner Rick Mola, my boss, and my friend. So congrats to Rick, that is a fish of a lifetime. We've seen numerous fish in the high 40-pound class, and we've seen a bunch of 50-pound fish. I've probably known of 12 taken this past week. I've been trying to get one myself. I've been out 4 nights this past week, all-nighters to sunrise, and the fishing is red hot. We've seen fish from like 20 to 40 pounds on the chunk at night and drifting live bait. Guys plugging the islands in the morning are reporting a good bite. There's been a lot of like schoolies to slot-sized fish. And then on the south side of the islands, a lot of the bunker schools have been holding. They've been harassing them in the morning and in the evening, and they've been smacking them at night on the high slack. Guys fishing deep water reefs like the OB, 11B, and 20AC are reporting a really good chunk bite through the night and the sunrise. The sunrise bite has been really good. I was out this morning, and we had fish to like 42 pounds. Shop employee Tyler had a 45-pounder, and by 8 a.m. it starts to taper off a little. If you still want to try to get these fish, you do got to work a little deeper water. Guys throwing the fly rod around the island are doing really well too. On the schoolies, throwing stuff like clousers. There are some slots and overslots in there. And then I would say guys trolling still, like the 11B and OB, they're still getting them, but they're really getting chewed up by bluefish. So bunker spoons and umbrellas is the way to go, and also deep divers. Fluke fishing this past week, it's been good, but it's starting to take a downward turn now. Guys are going to have to start pushing out to a little bit deeper water. I would say get out of that 30 foot and start moving out to like 40, 50, bump it out to 60, some humps out there, and work some like deeper water reefs. The fluke like to hang around there. And then bucktails, you know, squid spearing, stuff like that. Gulp. Porgies, they're actually, we've heard of 2 this past week caught from the beach, so woo, it's about to take off. And then sea bass fishing still remains really good on your deep water wrecks. So guys looking for sea bass, get on the wrecks, you know, diamond jigs, slow pitch jigs, you know, bucktail, stuff like that. And always bring clam chum. That's going to help bring the sea bass to you and keep them under the boat. Thanks and good luck.
And to wrap things up, we'll take a short flight down to Costa Rica and see what's going on down in Marina Pez Vela.
Hey there guys, this is Ben checking in from Costa Rica. Hope you're all doing well. Here at the Marina Pez Vela right now, we've had an insane week for rooster fish. Just yesterday aboard my boat Good Day, we released 6 nice rooster fish, beautiful fish in the 20 to 25 pound range. Come down here guys if you're looking for a bucket list rooster fish. Offshore, we've had a really nice tuna bite as well. Lots of tuna in the 30 to 80 pound range, some bigger fish in the 100 pound class as well. Really nice tuna fishing. Right now is peak season for our offshore marlin fads. You got to look into that guys. Best blue marlin fishery in the world. Hope to see you down here soon. Marina Pez Vela, Costa Rica. Back to you guys. Thank you.
And that's what we have for you guys in the reports this week. There's a lot going on and a lot of fisheries to cash in on. If you're not a subscriber to The Fisherman, I highly recommend heading over to the website. There's free content on there that will give you a very clear picture of what we offer, and I think you're going to be impressed. I also think you're going to find once you look at what you get, you get 3 editions. You get the New England, you get the Long Island, and you get the New Jersey. So you get to look at all of those online. You get all the reports that cover that. You can look at all the back issue reports and make your best guesses about where things are going to fire up next this year. We've got video content. We've got writers from all over the place. And again, we have reports that cover it all. It's the best $30 you can spend in fishing. Check it out at www.thefisherman.com. Appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoy the report. Hopefully they help you catch some fish. And we'll see you guys next week.